Believe it or not, there is good in grief. I know what you're thinking, but I'm going to explain to you how there is good in grief. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dennis, and I come to you where I give you a little bit of my stories about the death of my daughter, who was 20 years old, Dakota, and some of the journeys that I went through to get through grief. I'm currently going through grief, and some of the good, the bads, and the uglies that work for me. And again, I say this with everything and everything I start off with. I am not a licensed therapist or do not specialize in grief. This is just my journey and some of the notes that I've taken along through my journal of getting better, making sure that I don't stay bad in my grief. So before we start, I would like for you to hit the like button, like, comment, subscribe, so I can grow the channel and help out other people that are grieving. Today's subject is the good in grief. We always talk about the bad in grief, but the good in grief is not talked about a lot. And today I wanted to specialize a little bit on speaking on the good in grief. There are a few points that I want to go over. And so sit back, relax. Don't forget, again, to like, comment, and subscribe. All right, first thing we're going to talk about is giving your grief a voice. It is very important to give your grief a voice. Some of the things that kind of hurt me was I sat in my grief. I didn't talk about it. I wasn't going to therapy. I started therapy at first, and I dropped off. I was not working out. There's a lot of things that I withheld in, and I did not give my grief a voice. Giving your grief a voice is very helpful. It brings a lot out of you, and it's a beneficial thing to talk about. It's something that just don't happen overnight. You have to get to that point. So once you get to that point of grief and you give it a voice, it will help you. It will give you an opportunity to have an outlet. It's like having something bottled up in for a long time, and then all of a sudden it just explodes and goes off. And some people explode. Some people who grieve, and they explode off on the people that they love the most, who they're trying to help them, because they're not giving their grief a voice. Another way of giving a nonverbal voice is working out, getting physically active, getting in the gym. That helps out a lot. Getting you a licensed therapist. Talk to a therapist. Talk to a counselor. Talk to someone who specializes in grief, or talk to a mentor, just a business mentor, a mentor, a life mentor, and talk about that grief. Give that grief a voice. Let it out when you're ready. This is when you're ready. And normally typically happen for me during the acceptance phase, because I didn't feel safe talking about how I felt. I felt very vulnerable talking about that grief, so I held it in. And it's not going nowhere, so you might as well let the grief out. All right. Second thing that can help you and see the good in grief is you're going to get closer to God. Getting closer to God is an amazing thing. A lot of people run from God during the grief, and there are people who go through their grief and they run towards God for answers, and for comfort. And it helps you learn more about your God. It helps you learn more about your faith. It helps you learn more that for me, I realized that God doesn't work in the way that I blamed him for after my daughter's death, right? But he's an awesome person. I read the book of Job, and when I read the book of Job and see how this man lost his children, his farm, his cattle, his empire, and he grieved. He grieved for a long time, but he never gave up on God. He never blamed God. He was never blasphemous towards God. And in the end, God replaced and replenished him a new family, new riches, and a new empire because of his commitment and his faith to God. So the good in grief is it gives you an opportunity to get closer to God. It gives you an opportunity to learn God, and it gives you an opportunity to get closer within your faith. Your story can be somebody else's survival guide. That is the good in grief. Once you get to your acceptance phase, once you start to understand that your grief is never going nowhere, it's going to always be with you, and you're going to get an opportunity to, you got to figure out a way to live with that grief and live again and smile again, because it's not going nowhere. Once you go through those steps, you journal, you read, you work out, you go to God, you do a lot of different things to help you get good. It's going to be somebody else's survival guide, because guess what? Death happens daily, hourly, minutes. People are going to need your help because they know you struggle with grief. They see you came out of the grief, and they're going to come to you for their survival guide. Some people don't want to deal with it. Some people don't want to embrace it. But in the end, if you choose to be somebody else's survival guide, that is the good in grief. You also reframe yourself. I reframed myself. Before my daughter passed, I was not the person I am now. After she passed, I let that death and that grief make me a better person. In some unhealthy ways, I blamed myself for her death, and I still do at times. But it made me be a better father. It made me be a better man. It made me be a better steward to God. So grief can help you reframe yourself once you get out of certain phases. And when you reframe yourself, you become a different person. And it should be in a good way, because grief can make you be something in a way that you don't want to be, in a bad way. But the grief can be a way for you to reform yourself in a good way. It can make you it can make you look at problems a different way. It can make you deal with problems in a different way. Grief, the good in grief also opens you up for a new transition. Whether you're transitioning to faith, whether you're transitioning to sympathy, whether you transition into listening more, whether you transition into understanding somebody else's pain and somebody else's hurt. For me, the good thing in grief was I found the Lord during my grief. I found compassion, and I looked at myself. I'm like, I didn't like who I was before this grief happened. So now that I'm grieving, it has made me a better person of listening, a more stronger person in faith, getting closer to God, working out. I've lost 20 pounds since January. So that has made me a better person internally for myself and within my body. So the transformation that you go through grief, once you get out of that you get into the acceptance phase and you're ready to start moving forward again in life, that is an amazing thing that can do something for you, which is the good in grief. Loss makes you develop gratitude for small things in life. Just the small things in life. Gratitude takes the sting out of loss. When you lose somebody, you open up yourself to, hey, the little things in life. You might not be here long. So let's go ahead and live life. Let's give apologies to the people that we were beefing with, to the people that we lost friendship with. Let's give gratitude to people who are struggling when we never gave gratitude before. That would help you take the sting out of the loss, is your gratitude, which, is a little different. But it's a good thing. It was a good thing for me, Dennis. It was a good thing for my children. It was a good thing for the people who were in my life, the women in my life, the men in my life. The gratitude piece was amazing in the loss. My therapist told me to do this, and I read it in a book called Navigating Grief, which is a beautiful thing. I would highly suggest that book. It's a how-to guide journal. And I would say one of the things I did was write down all the grateful things. Write down all the grateful things about that person that you lost. Write them down. Take a book and write down all the great things about that person and tell their story. Tell the story of the person you lost. Mine, I had so many great things about my daughter. Some of the things I wrote down was she was a straight A student. She was smart. She was an honor student. She was highly athletic. She was a fast learner. She can retain information very well. She didn't get it from me, but that's another story. But she was so wonderful in that she was compassionate. She had a kind heart. She was lovable. And I took all the things that she was great at, and I wanted to implement them within myself. It gives us a chance to laugh in tears of joy. So when you write all these things down, it gives us the chance to be grateful for the person that we lost. It gives us the opportunity to be amazing, to respect the amazingness of the person that we lost. If amazingness is not a word, I just came up with it. But it gives us the opportunity to look at the greatness of the person we lost and take the greatness of the person we lost and share that greatness of that person to the world, to yourself. Try to take in some of the great things that person had in them, and instill them and implement them in your life. What did that person teach you? What did the person you lost, what did they teach you in life? What was the positive things that they taught you in life? And write that down. And it will give you a great opportunity to instill more things in you. Respect that person. And it won't have you grieving in a negative way. It will have you grieving in a positive way. I'm going to tell you this before I go. You're going to get through this. If you're watching this video and you're grieving, you are going to get through this. Follow steps, get therapy, take your time, be careful who you're around, be careful who you talk to, get a professional, work out, get in the book of the Bible, have a relationship with God, and find the good in the grief. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace out.